Hello everyone. In today's session, we are going to learn about community ecology. This is the second part of the topic. In the first part, we have learned about the community, the characteristics of community. In this part, we are going to learn about the various aspects of community, like the interactions between species or populations living in a community. First, let us revise what a community is. A community is defined as an assemblage of species living close enough together for potential interaction. That means it is not just needed that they live in one particular area, but they have to have some interaction with each other. That's why that particular assemblage of species is called as a community. They differ in their species richness. That means some communities have rich species diversity and some of them have less. Like you have, for example, in the last video, we have seen that in tropical and temperate rainforest, you have species diversity, species richness, whereas tundra regions does not have that kind of richness. Then the number of species they contain and the relative abundance of different species. So each community has its own number of species, its own relative abundance of these species and their richness. A community's interactions, which we are going to deal with in today's video, include competition, predation, herbivory, symbiosis, and disease. There are a number of possible interspecific interactions that link the species of a community. Interspecific interactions can be symbolized by the positive or negative effects of the interaction on the individual population. That means if two species are there, then one species can give a positive interaction to the other species, or it could give a negative interaction to the other species. So it could be either positive or negative. Sometimes it can also be not affected by any of these species. That means no effect is seen on one species by the other. Then it is denoted by 0. So interactions could be either positive, that is plus, or negative, which is represented by a question mark, or not effective, that is 0. Neither it is positive nor negative. The effect of an interaction between two species may change as circumstances change. So, in a community, you have different interactions which are going on, and they could be positive or negative or neither positive nor effective. And these interactions change along with the circumstances. If the circumstances change, then the interaction also will be changing. First, let us see competition. Interspecific competition can occur when species compete for specific limiting resource. Like, for example, you have both a mango tree and also a guava tree trying to compete for resources present in the soil. So, in between two species, you can find competition when they need the same kind of resource. Then, and when the resource is a little less abundant or it is very deficient in the soil. When two species compete for a resource, the result is detrimental to one or both the species. Strong competition can lead to the local elimination of one of the two competing species, a process called as competitive exclusion. The competitive exclusion principle states that two species with similar needs for the same limiting resource cannot coexist in the same place. If we take one particular community, either as a cropland or a grassland or an orchard, then when two plant species are competing with each other for the same kind of a natural resource, then the effect could be either negative or neither negative or positive. Because here, when the competition is getting very, very strong, then one species tends to dominate over the other species and completely sometimes eliminate that species. This particular process is called as competitive exclusion. So, according to this principle, no two species the two with the similar needs for the same limiting resource can exist in the same place. Ecological niche is the sum total of a species' use of abiotic and biotic resources in the environment. So you can say that according to Eugene Odum, organism's habitat is an address and the niche is called as its profession. So, for example, the niche of a tropical tree lizard includes the temperature range it tolerates, the size of the branches it perches on, the time of the day when it is active, and the kind of insects it eats. All these are considered to be the tropical tree lizard's niche. The competitive exclusion principle can be restated to say that two species cannot coexist in the community if their niches are identical. So, here in the last but one slide, we have learned that when the one particular species dominates over the other, when they are competing for a limited resource, then it completely eliminates the other species. This is called as competitive exclusion. Now, the same thing can be now presented in a different manner, like if their niches are identical, then two species cannot coexist in a community. But sometimes you see ecologically similar species can coexist in a community if their niches differ in one or more significant ways. So, out of all characters that comprise a niche of one particular organism, if one or two differ, even then they can coexist. But if they're all similar completely, then it becomes a little difficult for them to coexist. A species' fundamental niche is the niche potentially occupied by that particular species. It might differ from realized niche. That is, a species actually occupies in a particular environment. That is, what it has and what it does is both completely different here. So that's why fundamental niche and realized niche are also different in the environment. After competition comes predation. Here also it is a positive or negative interaction between species in which one species, the predator, kills, that is, it is having a positive interaction, and eats the other, the prey. The prey is getting eaten, so it is a negative interaction for it. The term predation, as soon as we think about it, we can think about a lion or a tiger attacking a deer or an antelope. But here, this predation could also be interactions such as seed predation, that is, in which seed-eating weevils eat plant seeds. So the plant seeds are needed for it to continue its progeny. When its seeds are eaten by the weevils, the progeny is now in a question mark. It is now, its position is now in a doubtful manner. So this also could be predation. Natural selection favors adaptations of predators and prey. So over a period of time or during the evolution, predators have developed many adaptations. Preys also have developed many adaptations, because of which they can, predator can kill the prey, and it wants to try to kill the prey, and the prey tries to camouflage itself from the predator. Now, let us first understand the adaptations followed by predators. They have acute senses, weaponry such as claws, fangs, stingers, or poison to help catch and subdue the prey. Now, the predators that pursue prey are generally fast and agile, and those who lie in ambush are often camouflaged. So, predators could be of two different types. One, they are very fast and agile. They do not have any weaponry except their claws or fangs, etc. And they run very fast. But some of them can wait in the bush and see that the prey is, when the prey is coming near them, they try to conceal themselves in the surroundings, that they are completely camouflaged, making the prey think that there is no predator there. When the prey comes into the picture, the predator now then falls onto it and kills it. So predators could be either fast or camouflaged. Prey animals also have developed some adaptations that help them avoid being eaten. It could be fleeing, that is, they run as fast or more fast than the predators, hiding, and self-defense. Sometimes the prey will take up alarm calls and summon many individuals of the prey species to mob the predator. So when there are many prey species, the predator might be a little worried about coming and attacking that particular prey. Then adaptive coloration has evolved repeatedly in the animals. So they change their color according to the surroundings. Camouflage or cryptic coloration makes prey difficult to spot against the background. Sometimes some animals have mechanical or chemical defenses. Chemical defenses includes odors and toxins. That means they smell or they produce some kind of a poison, which is very, very difficult for so the predator does not usually attack it because it knows that it is having some poison in it. Animals with affecting chemical defenses often exhibit bright, warning, aposematic coloration. Like you see the flying frogs, where the bright colors are seen in them. So this is something of a chemical defense. Now, when the predators are there, they are very, very cautious in approaching potential prey with bright coloration. So because the prey is developing bright coloration, predators already, they know that this particular prey might be difficult to kill because it is having that bright coloration. One prey species may gain protection by mimicking the appearance of another prey species. So predators may also use mimicry. Some snapping turtles have tongues resembling wiggling worms to lure small fish. So these are all the adaptations which are shown by the predator and the prey. One famous example can be thought of as the insectivorous plants, which are beautifully colored and they're having either droplets which glisten like dew, or they have attractive leaves, or they have the picture where the downward directed hairs do not make or do not permit the insects to fly off from the picture. So the plants which are insectivorous have developed various strategies or adaptations to catch the prey and have their nitrogen deficiency fixed. The next kind of interaction could be herbivory, which is a positive or negative interaction in which herbivore, that is a plant-eating animal, eat parts of a plant or an alga. Now these herbivores are large mammals and small invertebrates. Herbivores have specialized adaptations, like many herbivorous insects have chemical sensor on their feet to recognize appropriate food plants. Mammalian herbivores have specialized dentition and digestive systems to process vegetation. And plants may produce chemical toxins which may act in combination with spines and thorns to prevent herbivory. So we have seen this herbivory also like predation and predation, that it is a positive and negative interaction. That means positive for herbivore, which is getting its food, and negative for the plant which is being eaten. So herbivore develops special type of adaptations, like insects have sucking mouth parts or sponging mouth parts, something like that. So they have developed their body parts in such a way that they are adapted to herbivore, like bees, etc., insects, etc. Mammals like cow, buffalo, these have developed a special dentition to process the food that they eat. Now the plants in turn, which is being eaten by these animals, develop some thorns or spines or sometimes chemical toxins, so that the animal does not approach it for food. So because of the presence of thorns, the animals will not eat it, or spines, or the chemical toxins. So these are the adaptations of the plants with which they try to see that the herbivores do not eat them. Then another type of interaction is parasitism. It is a positive and negative symbiotic interaction in which a parasite derives its nutrition or nourishment from a host which is harmed in the process. Endoparasites are those parasites which live within the body of the host, and ectoparasites live and feed on the external surface of the host. There is another special type of parasitism in which an insect lays eggs on or in the living host, usually a wasp. This is called as parasitoidism. The larva, when the eggs hatch, the larva come out and feed on the body of the host and eventually kill it. Then many parasites have complex life cycles involving a number of hosts. Some parasites change the behavior of their host in ways that increase the probability of the parasite being transferred from one host to the another. So parasites are so modified that they can be transferred from one host to the other host, that is for completing their life cycle. Parasites have significant direct and indirect effect on survival, reproduction, density of the host population. Now there are also pathogens. Pathogens are disease-causing agents that have deleterious effects on their host, both positive and negative. Positive for the pathogen, negative for the host. They are typically microorganisms like bacteria, viruses, or protists. And sometimes fungi and prions can also be pathogenic. What is the difference between the two? Parasites are generally large multicellular organisms, while pathogens are mostly microscopic. And pathogens are sometimes very lethal also. Then mutualism is another interaction. It is an interspecific symbiosis in which two species benefit from their interaction. So both of them get benefit from each other. This is again interspecific. That means naturally it is occurring between two different species. It could be the example of nitrogen fixation by bacteria in the root nodules of legumes, or digestion of cellulose by microorganisms in the guts of ruminant mammals, and exchange of nutrients in mycorrhizae. Mycorrhizae are nothing but the association of plant fungi and plant roots. So these are all the examples for mutualism or interspecific symbiosis. Here, both the parties get benefited. Like here, for example, nitrogen fixing bacteria, the bacteria gets shelter and food from the legume roots, whereas the legumes get fixed nitrogen in the form of nitrates or ammonia in their body. So this is nothing but both the parties derive benefit from this particular reaction. In mutualistic interactions may result in the evolution of related adaptations in both the species. Now, the same example will be taken, right? Nitrogen fixation can be taken here. How is this relatively adapted? Now, rhizobium species can even, if there is no legume root, they can also survive in soil. But once inside a legume root, they develop, they tend to multiply to a large number. Why is this possible? Because the legume root nodules will be having a pigment called as leg hemoglobin, which will make the oxygen levels a little low near the bacterium species and release the oxygen in a very limited or low manner, so that the nitrogenase enzyme can be expressed very, very efficiently. Here, oxygen is given to the bacterium for its regular purposes, and it is also controlled and given in such a manner that the nitrogenase enzyme is effective or efficient. So this kind of adaptations will be evolved in between these two species where the symbiosis is going on. Excuse me. Commensalism is another interaction that benefits one species excuse me, but neither harms or helps the other. So you can denote it by plus and 0. So, excuse me, commensal interactions are difficult to document in nature because any close association between species likely affects both species if only slightly. For example, hitchhiking species such as the barnacles that attach to whales are sometimes considered commensal. The hitchhiking barnacle gain access to a substrate and seem to have little effect on the whale. However, the barnacles may slightly reduce the host efficiency of movement, but sometimes they may also provide some camouflage for the whale. This is another type of interaction, that is commensalism, where one benefits but the other is neither harmed nor helped. For all these interactions, co-evolution is needed. Co-evolution refers to reciprocal evolutionary adaptations of two interacting species. A change in one species acts as a selective force on the other species, whose adaptation in turn acts as a selective force on the first species. So, co-evolution has to be seen in those two species where the interactions are going on. The linkage of adaptations requires that genetic change in one of the interacting population of the two species be tied to the genetic change in the other population. An example is the gene for gene recognition between a plant species and a species of virulent pathogen. Usually we see that one particular pathogen attacks one particular type of plant only. This is because of the gene for gene recognition. So as a plant evolved, so also the viral pathogen. In contrast, the aposematic coloration of various tree frog species and the aversion reactions of various predators are not examples of co-evolution. This is not an example. These are adaptations to other organisms in the community rather than coupled genetic changes into interacting species. With this, we finish the kind of interactions between the species in a specific organisms in a community. With this, we come to the last part of the, second part of the community ecology, and the final part will be dealing with, the third part will be dealing with the topics like biological spectrum, life forms, cover, frequency, distribution, etc. So with this, we come to the conclusion of second part. Thank you.